Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Can you believe it? It's Tuesday. That's what at least what my calendar says. I know it may feel like a Monday. You may wish it was a Friday and hope the Monday was another holiday, but guess what it is? Let's make the most of it and give thanks. Let's start off with some open line and invite you to share your thoughts with us at 949-8037, 949-6990. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 949-6990, 1-800-534-TALK. Can you imagine that? 1-800-534-8255. If it's Talk Today, if it's a talk show, just fitting that the number is 1-800-534-TALK. Well, they say the beauty of talking is only when someone's listening. I can encourage you to call because we are listening. And not only listening attentively, listening with intent to understand, not just to respond, listening with the ultimate desire to see that through what is said, maybe some constructive, positive action can be implemented. We live in an interesting time in our history. For those of us who have elderly parents or grandparents who can share with us, from their own experiences growing up, some of the things that they may remember, and as they may tell you, oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't remember what happened this morning. But they may have a very vivid, accurate recollection. But even if they don't, it is their perception of what transpired. And certainly things different as the day goes on. So what do we make of it? Well, a few things are interesting. I'm grateful again for the opportunity this morning for a few of us to have set aside a few hours and say, hey, can you chat? Now, it makes my day much more informative. I become more informed, but I'm also interested and intrigued by the increasingly, sense of urgency that has been experienced by our people, especially many of whom have to travel more and more for their jobs. Some used to travel a lot, so every week they may hop the flight, for whatever reason, go for a day or two and come back. Some may go for a little bit longer, every quarter or thereabouts. So that semblance of normalcy is seemingly starting to return. But as a lady shared with me earlier, yeah, she is back to having to travel despite the increased frequency and willingness of many clients and colleagues alike to use the technology, not just for the cost savings, but for the convenience. But there are certain things that you just need to do in person. And perhaps your job requires you to physically visit other locations, despite the technologies that we have. But she shared that it seems that there are things that are happening that we are accepting, and perhaps things that have changed that we should say, wait a minute, why is it that way? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's any better. Well, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 949-6990. So I want to invite you to share your thoughts. We're going to be open line 1:30. We're expecting a continued partnership with the Health Services Authority to be able to welcome speech and language pathologist Miss Faith Geely. Now, some of you may have known some good positive things transpired, over the Christmas. She'll tell us about it. So we'll leave that for now. But just a little teaser, and not like, that Calypso song. How do you go, Miss Susan? You eat nothing but come on, sing it for us, Susan. She said no. She says two things she doesn't do: sing and sing publicly. Well, I can't tell you that I sing, but I certainly make a joyful noise. And if your laughter puts a little light-hearted step in your spirit, well, that is good. Because there is much I can honestly accept, recognize, and share that there are many of us who publicly try our very best. Not because we're false, but because we are actually expectant, hopefully expectant, that despite all that we have to endure, we may not be willing or wanting to embrace, but we have to endure it, not just for the family, friends, co-workers, colleagues and the like around us, but because to do otherwise would mean that we would be subjected to defeat. It doesn't mean that if you're pensive and that you can't necessarily be productive. Doesn't mean that as you act you shouldn't also be thinking. Some would say, think before you speak. Well, give some thought before you act as well. So who's going to be our caller to share a thought with us? A number of things have been shared earlier. We want to relate to each of you and hopefully encourage. 1-800-534-8255. Still wish to extend an apology to those who may have a challenge, and it's only when things are acknowledged that it can be addressed. It's only when things are brought to the fore of those in authority that there can be a sense of accountability. We know some have had an issue, and we are perhaps increasingly complacent. We are increasingly willing to punt and say, kick the can down the road, let someone else deal with it. But as a good friend shared, one of those little graphics that we see all the time that we laughed often, and it brings us a little bit of levity to our day. There's the ostrich, has its head in what seems to be sand, and next to the ostrich is this, very, very imposing presence of a lion. It says, I got bad news and I got worse news. One, that's my, little box. And two, despite your head being in the sand, I can still see you. Now, we know often, as Mr. Ezra Miller will let us, if he doesn't mind us quoting him, talk about the mushroom treatment. And like the ostrich, as Dr. Frank would share, we can't continually bury our heads in the sand, because we may consciously do that so that we can be, in our minds, ignorantly blind to what's around us, or at least so we tell ourselves. But it doesn't mean it doesn't transpire. Well, if you have an umbrella and as you open it, there is no covering, it's just this metal spines, you're still going to get wet. And even if you have an umbrella and it opens up, but the covering is so small that it barely covers the top of your head, you're still going to get wet. You can have an umbrella that's huge. I had one. I'll tell you a story once about how it was liberated from me, if I could put it that way, if you follow what I was saying. And as big as it was, it could cover 3 or 4 of us. Torrential downpour with driving rain. If nothing else, your shoes and the lower appendages would still get wet. But if you have people who draw alongside and say, what, we'll dry off, we'll move on, we'll press on, we'll press in, what makes it better? Is there the courage still in our society? I recall a conversation a long time ago, it seems like now, in excess of 2 decades. I was only reminded of it just this morning and earlier last week as we were cleaning out some of the things. A little piece I'd penned, taking up a comment from others, so it's not a novel idea, unlike what we may be hearing that word overused and abused in recent times about novel this and that, of a suggestion that we should have a holiday. That holiday should do two things. One, celebrate and commemorate our people and their successes and serve to inspire. And it should be between July and November only, because on our calendar at the time there was nothing, and still isn't any sort of break. It's just a long extended period. And then from November on through, the preceding time of sort of suspension, it was, we have nothing but holidays again until the July. Well, we introduce a new holiday. It does showcase and celebrate our people, but is it appropriately timed and named? Well, I would say no, but others would disagree. But nonetheless, we get a chance to look at our people. And for those in attendance yesterday, not only can we celebrate with their family and the recipients, but the knowledge that within our society we have many people. It's just a question as to what we do and how we do it and why we do it. So as we congratulate those who receive and continue to serve our country and endeavor to do the very best and provide that safe, secure, and nurturing, stable civil society, maybe we need to start to ask ourselves, how much more do we expect of the few who are constantly giving? Can more of us step up? Are we demanding, expecting, requiring of our governments to do more? And if so, are we prepared to yield our freedoms and even our thoughts simply because it's now the dictate of those either elected or appointed? Well, look at the increasing changes that are transpiring across the globe and ask yourself if democracies are not under threat. Not just the threats of wars and the rumors thereof, but also the notion that so many people have, for now, acquiesce to being dictated to. I say with great sadness, if we look at, as the media has termed it, mass shootings. Now, it doesn't take much to recall easily that I absolutely despise the possession of guns. It doesn't mean that I don't have friends and families that I love, adore, respect, and admire tremendously. But it does not still mean that the possession of a gun, whether in the hands of the military, whether we call it a regiment or otherwise, whether it's in policing or otherwise, whether it's for peacekeeping, almost an oxymoron, if there is one. We're using force to keep the peace. Now, take me to task. I always believe that instead of training soldiers, we train diplomats, and not to conspire, to orchestrate and ensure that the people are subjected to some sense of fallacy, but to be able to negotiate, to be able to bring people to a space where they find a resolution and solutions to problems that are presented, that are faced, much of a populace. Take, those of us who read and travel, or we once did, waterways across many continents, many spaces that have been polluted over the years, either from manufacturing runoff to the dumping of garbage in the rivers and the other waters, that to this very day, millions of people rely on those waters not only for transport but for drinking. And they have two choices: drink what they know to be contaminated, know that has affected and infected them and their children, but without that water and that water source, their livelihoods and their lives in themselves are in peril. But yet, what action, if any, is being done by the World Health Organization or any other international agency to ensure that those waters are clean? But yet, they say, oh, it's going to take, millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions or billions or decades to do, but still nothing. And not just, the waters and the like, but what about other spaces and places where people live, and because of development or the threats imposed on man and by man, what are we doing to address future generations? But instead, we seem to conjure up the boogeyman to frighten, intimidate, and otherwise malign those who may choose to ask questions. I say that to share that earlier in our discussion. We can say what we want. I've always been, in my mind, blessed and privileged by the women in our society who remember their mothers and grandmothers who stood, and not only those who have come from the Cayman stock, but who themselves have been from other jurisdictions and seen a similar resolve and resilience, and sometimes the resistance within their own, mothers and grandmothers who stood up and were counted. The question has to be asked, Are the men equally willing to not just necessarily take the lead and the charge, but willing to stand arm in arm? Well, let's have a discussion. Whether you want to talk about the need for every person in their country to have, a licensed gun in his or her possession, or whether it should be, a gunless society. Whether you want to look at the notion that the world is now in a mess and the only thing that will save us is, the coming of the Lord. You may say, well, it's the science that provides the answers, so nothing else will be, will suffice. Well, take us to task. It's only through dialogue, discourse, and through desire to understand are we able to find meaningful solutions. But we can talk amongst ourselves, we can grumble and complain, and we can, like the ostrich, stick our heads in the sand and hope and pray that it goes away. Not quite sure that's going to work, but you never know. That might be your belief. If it is, doesn't mean you're wrong, but be willing to be, either A, question for it, or B, more importantly, defend your position. 949-837, 949-6990. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh. Savannah Pharmacy, proud sponsor of Talk Today, Cayman's #1 call-in talk program. A new year upon us. Upgraded resolutions. Some things change. Some things linger. When it comes to who you trust, your friendly neighborhood pharmacy, Savannah Pharmacy, is here, where everybody knows your name. Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
The MedLab team would like to extend their congratulations to all of the Heroes Day awardees. Thank you for your service.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. If Miss Susan wasn't the consummate professional as she is, she'd say, hey, you know what you should do? You should threaten them that you're going to sing. Yeah, I bet you they call. No, she didn't say that. But maybe karaoke one night, huh? Maybe karaoke. I wonder what that would sound like, me and Susan doing a duet. Gee, probably like Loretta Lynn Conway today. She say a broken record. No, I think it'd be like Loretta Lynn Conway today. I think it would sound like it. Either Barman and Neil Diamond. Now that would be a duet. My goodness. Someone like, who's there? Well, you know what? If you ever go into an elevator and you hear that music that you don't like, that's probably Barman. If you hear that song at night sometimes, well, you'll never know. 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. WhatsApp 925-3261. Please share your thoughts with us. Again, I wanted to say if they would allow, me just, with the greatest respect, to say a special congratulations to all who will receive, as the Honorable Culture Minister indicated, there are many names who probably were not there that should have been it is somewhat, subjective exercise. Certainly it is requiring us as people to nominate. And to our very own Miss Norma and Miss Paulette, public congratulations, stalwarts of service to the community. We go to our phones. Well, I know what I want. What do you want? Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Hey, good afternoon, Sterling.
Boy, listen, the people that give you an award, they say, man, thank you for calling. You were about to sing now.
I tell you, man, it sounds like you're trying to get a little company. And when I heard you say you were going to sing, I said, no, that can't happen, man.
Man, thank you. I bet you I know who called you. One of my brothers. I bet you that who that was. No, but we had them. And thank you for calling. But just so I say to you, others, we had 1 or 2 messages during the break. We tried it ourselves. And it seems to be a challenge for some people to get in. We don't know what it is. We're not trying to infer anything. I say this carefully, as much as I genuinely love technology. And even though publicly I might say, well, that's the worst thing. But I like it. I like the things. But the use of technology these days, I think it allows us as an excuse to ignore certain things. Well, it's the system. Who designed the system, But anyway, you're online, man. Let's hear from you. Thank you for calling, though.
Yeah, the technology part, I'm still in the backseat because I'm still old school, so I got a long way to go. But anyway, I would rather not talking to you than to sit there and hear you sing, because over the weekend there I was listening to some commercials with you, and I really and truly I thought you were real West Bay, but now I come find out you're Norwegian. I don't know how that works.
Hey.
So you got to decide and tell me which one you really is. Man.
Thank you for that. Do you, well, 2 questions. Did that surprise you that the Caymanians, right, we know, the DNA goes so far and wide? I mean, did you know that?
No, not really, because a lot of my grandparents grandmother was Portuguese, and a lot of people I know have Scottish, Scottish blood, German. So I don't know, surprise. But I never thought that full breed West Bay was Norwegian. I didn't thought that.
Yeah, well,
I thought it could have come from somewhere else, but not Norway.
Well, it's interesting, right? My mother's side, in addition to that, is Spain, and my father's side is amazing, right? And I don't know about my sisters, but I believe, to me and my brothers, we always hear our dad say, was his people when Columbus was out and about, didn't know where he was going, with him up on the back of skis saying, but look here, you lost, this is the way it is. Because if you look at his mother, right, and his aunts in particular, they look like the history books with the Taino Indians. Very much like that. I never knew my grandmothers, but from what I'm told, both of them absolutely gorgeous. My mother's mother, I think I heard a gentleman describe her once when looking at one of my sisters, a porcelain white skin with that jet black hair and that feature. And then my grandmother on my father's side, I don't think this is the justification, but it's the image I have, that wonderful tan skin with that resolve and pen sniff in her face. Just an incredible lady, you know what I mean? It's amazing, man. It's amazing the stock that we come from.
Yeah, I mean, if we sit and take the time to learn our history, we'd be surprised where we really generated from. Instead of everybody now saying we come from Africa, it's not only one continent on this earth. So,
but it's
other people got to realize that we come from different nationalities, just one kind.
Yeah, I would like you to certainly to share as you wish, but guide me, because I used to joke, because I heard a particular pastor, and because he celebrated his birthday the other day, the late pastor, because I think we all had that immense love and respect for him. He, like other pastors, after I heard him say the same thing. The Bible says love thy neighbor, but he never say much about liking them, right? And so we love people. And when I look at the Cayman that I grew up in, and I heard my father talk about, and to understand that, he was born just at the turn of the century, his parents in the 1800s, you get a history of what it was like. And to hear our own generation of Caymanians say things that are disparaging, that are demeaning, that discredit who we are. And then some people, like there's one South African fellow that, I'll tell you the truth, just looking at him in my mind, You just want to slap him. A very arrogant, condescending, racist little whatever, right?
Yeah,
and yet we celebrate these kind of mutts in our society. And yet, there's another lady. Yeah, when there's another lady that the love that she has for this place, the short time that she's been here, a decade or so, you see that we have all kinds, but it is for us as a people, as much as I see the nonsense in this fellow, he is one of tens of thousands who are so much better. But yet this one, allows the pool to be, sort of dirtied up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are we going to do about that to make sure that the rich fabric that you just talked about, that wonderfulness that is this society, is the thing that we see, except, we seem to only, I guess, what is it? Maybe it's he who has the gun or the goal is the one who, making the rules. I don't know, boy. I have to wonder.
It's something to sit and wonder about, because, that was the topic that I called talk about. But since you're getting there, I know you can entertain that a little bit. But
you take me where you want to go, Bob.
I think more or less we as Caymanians, we more shameful of who we are than other nationalities. Other nationalities seem to be boastful and proud of who they is. But for us, we look like, since we have become forgotten, that we even afraid to call ourselves Caymanians anymore. The whole issue is, I always tell people when they see me, I say, what you see is what you get. I am part Caymanian and part Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
That can't come out of my blood. But I am more Caymanian than what I am Portuguese. Because I remember I met a Portuguese couple. And I would tell them the background and the story of how I become Portuguese blood.
Mm-hmm.
And they started speaking Portuguese. Now I can speak one or two words in Portuguese, but I can't hold a conversation with you.
I can say Portuguese in Portugal, in Porto, and Lisbon, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's a hard language to speak. Compared, if you take a simple letter like two.
Mm-hmm.
And you say "do," that means that you totally don't even know. It sounds like a word, but it's just a number. And they were speaking Portuguese to me and expect me to speak it back. I say, listen, I just told you. I say I have Portuguese blood in me from birth. That doesn't say I came from Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And I am Caymanian, and that is my language that I speak.
Mm-hmm.
But even as being Caymanians, and it's something that a topic should be brought up more on. And I sometimes when you bring your friend there, the biker there from Easton, I think he's from.
No, boy, two things you said wrong. You call him my friend, he might be offended by that. No, man. Ray Banker, he's a good friend.
That's supposed to be your sidekick, no, man. Like, you remember, OC got his sidekick, OC got down.
You got
how to do it too, so you got how a sidekick somewhere down the line.
Starskin Hutch, huh?
So as knowing where we come from is a very important something. Whether our nationality came from Honduras, Portugal, Spain, New Zealand, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to remember that we wasn't here first.
Right.
Whoever we come from were here first. We wasn't here first, so we gotta acknowledge them. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't been here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the grace of God that put all of us here. So just to know that these things we should hark on, and we should pay it more attention. These kind of things can create topic, and it will be educational, because a lot of people, like our children in the schools, they are taught the education of the nationalities that teaching them in the school. Because if you ask some of the children in the school, they don't even know who the premier is. They don't know who the deputy premier is. They don't know who our representatives are. They don't know nothing about the people of Cayman, but they can tell you about these other islands that their teachers are telling them about. So we are getting away from who we really are.
Exactly. So the question is, right, I wonder to what extent we, the collective we, not just the Caymanians, but also the educators, the policymakers, the politicians. I wonder if we have taken, as you shared, responsibility for that. We're willing to understand, accept that we are accountable. Now, I had an opportunity to speak to a teacher not that long ago, and this is in the primary school. and the teacher invited me to see the things that were happening in the class. And on the, well, I call it a blackboard, but I guess it's a smart board these days. And it was being used with those barrel pens where they write down and erase on, right? And on it, I could recognize names. I could recognize what I thought was perhaps a discussion on politics. So I was of the view that this was a comparative discussion on political systems, and they were going through this jurisdiction, and they were going to now bring Cayman into the equation. But to your point, the teacher was teaching from what the teacher knew, because as part of the social studies. Now this is in the last year or either the year before last of primary school. And in speaking to the teacher, she said, I teach what I know. I know this is my country. This is who the Prime Minister of Jamaica is. This is the Minister of Agriculture. And just showing the system and could relate as an independent nation. But there was nothing, like you said, to say, okay, well, here's what we have there. Here's what we have here. So isn't that on us then to make sure, as you're saying, that instruction is front and center of our thing?
Yeah, it is upon us, and it has to start from home, that we as the parents teach our children to know who they are. Because my parents taught me who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching mine who they are. They are not what the teachers in the school telling them they are. Because if you ask the teachers in the school, when they came here, some of them still not even know part of anything to do with the Cayman Islands. They just basically going through the breeze, month to month. Basically, what they're worrying about, they're not worrying about the children and what they learn. And what I am saying is, for someone to say, well, all right, where does the system fall short? Who you think is responsible for that? If it doesn't come from home, the system falls short because the government should put these teachers through a strategic training for them to know about the country they are working in before they work in order to educate the children.
Right.
I know for certain, because one time I was in the construction side. This was long after I retired, to redo the Cayman Brack High School under a contractor. And one of the teachers that was there that was teaching the children in the classroom was the 4 walls were surrounded by photos and information regarding her country. It had absolutely not even the Cayman flag. It had her country flag flying on the wall or posted on the wall. So when children see these things, they're confused. They don't know which way to go. Am I part of this part of the world that they're teaching me, or I'm from here in the Cayman Islands? They're confused. Some of the children, they don't know east from west, north from south. They don't know where Cayman is. They don't know where Cayman Brack is. They never heard about Little Cayman. They never heard about... These are the things that is causing us to forget, our children to forget where they come from. And so it falls then on when they come home, we should ask our children, hey, what did they teach you? If they're telling you, listen, you came from so-and-so, you go back to school the next day. You tell them, please, listen, go back to school the next day. You don't need to disrespect your teacher, but you tell them plain and straight, my father or my papa or my mama tell me that I come from Sport Bay or I come from West Bay. I never come from east of that bluff. No way from east of that bluff. I come from right here out of Faith Hospital or right down out of Georgetown Hospital. These are the things where we need to get back to. So let me know when you're ready for me to talk about what I want to talk about.
All right. Susan, just remind us we've got a break. You cool to hang on? You just call you back, or you good?
Yeah, man. No, I can stay on.
All right. Well, we're going to have a good discussion. We need to get you, hosting with us, man. All right. Let's talk to you as we come back.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
The MedLab team would like to extend their congratulations to all of the Heroes Day awardees. Thank you for your service. Savannah Pharmacy, proud sponsor of Talk Today, Cayman's #1 call-in talk program. A new year upon us, upgraded resolutions. Some things change. Some things linger. When it comes to who you trust, your friendly neighborhood pharmacy, Savannah Pharmacy, is here, where everybody knows your name. Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays.
Apply today to the Walker Scholarship and Legal Training Program. You will join the Walker Scholarship and Legal Training Program, knowing that you will be offered more, both throughout your time in the program and after qualifying as a Cayman Islands attorney at law. Preparing Caymanians for a career of excellence through mentorship, opportunities, repetition, and experience. Be sure to have your application submitted by 28th of February 2023. Visit the careers section at walkersglobal.com to find out more about Walker's Cayman legal scholarships, articles of clerkship, qualifying work experience, and legal internships.
Increase your chances to win during the Rubis Pure Joy promotion. Don't miss Double Stamp Tuesdays and Thursdays at Jose's Rubis. Reflections offers you gas for less, and each time you fuel up at Jose's Rubis, you can enter to win weekly prize giveaways, plus the grand prize of a beautiful piece of land in Grand Cayman.
I'm sorry, what?
What did you say? Yes, Double Stamp Tuesdays and Thursdays are back at Jose's. Lower priced fuel, awesome prizes, and your chance to win a $150,000 piece of land. Don't forget, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Jose's Rubis, you not only get gas for less, you get double stamps to enter to win a $150,000 piece of land in the Rubis Pure Joy promotion. Be entered to win in the Rubis Pure Joy promotion by January 27th.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And of course, the phone lines are open, and if the butler man, as he shares with us, maybe we can keep him in the queue and he can be a part of the hosting, but who knows. But hey, thanks very much for staying on, man, and we want to get to what you had initially called about.
Well, that would give me a good reason to come to him on. I missed some kind of days, so
but listen, let's make it happen, man. Let's make it happen. Tell me, you got my number, so you tell me what day works best for you. We make a weekend of it.
I hear you. No problem, man. No problem. We work on that, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's getting back to the half part of what we were saying about who we are.
Mm-hmm.
I would hate to know, Dwayne, that we come to the point that we forget, or our children forget who they are, because me and you, Susan, we all getting older.
But wiser.
But wiser. Yes, and our children, our grandchildren, or whoever, or our nieces or nephews,
right?
We need to educate them to hold fast and know who they are. Do not let. My father always taught us one thing growing up, and I always reflect on my father, and I always reflect on my mother, because they were very strong biblical people. My mother went to church, but my father didn't, but he was very biblical when it comes to knowledge like that. And he always used to tell us, do not fall for anything. He said, if you fall for something, you'll fall for anything. And no, he said, always remember that who you are, let no man deceive your mind.
Mm.
And I can stand today in the front of any given person. It doesn't matter, because certainly I'm a person. I am not a shy person, especially if I go speak in public or anything like that. Never was. And I can stand in the front of any crown jewel on this earth that think that they are crown jewels. There's only one crown jewel, and he walked 2,000 plus years ago. And they hung him on the cross and crucified him. That's the only jewel I know. So I can walk and stand in the front of anyone and tell them that they cannot tell me or deceive me to tell me I come from some other different descendant from what my father taught me. We have to get our children to stand on these kind of beliefs, or like I said, if we don't get them to stand for what they know, they're going to fall for what they don't know. And that is the sad thing about who we are. I mean, when listening to that joke, when you and the guy there with the commercial of how in the commercial with the Norwegian, I mean, it really opened my eye that day when I heard it. Because really and truly, if we do not know, we can be led astray to believe anything. And it's good that somebody know that they can come back and say, listen, your grandparents knew my grandparents, and your father knew my father, and this is how on it descend, and not otherwise a foreigner come in front of you and say, listen, you come from so-and-so, you come from so-and-so. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. We as Caymanians, we need to realize that we are Caymanians. That's all. That's it. I mean, like I said, that wasn't a topic, but this is becoming a topic, and I can sit and hark on it all day if that's the case.
But as I listen to you, it just shows how increasingly, one, there's probably a growing knowledge and thirst to know about who we are, which is understandable. It probably shows that despite the fact that it wasn't that long ago we celebrated, the quincentennial, but that's probably of little consequence if in that intervening 500 plus years we don't understand, love, respect, honor, cherish our traditions and our heritage. We do things to support, promote, and educate so that it's part of who we are. But then there's also another thing too. It has to question, as many have, if, for instance, the book that is published as our official history book, if, as some have shared, that there was to be more to it, that is a work in progress that's probably not only incomplete but inaccurate, I wonder to what extent we're willing to consciously revisit that, not just through the oral traditions, and make sure we record it so there is that thing that we can refer to, but that we're willing to present an accurate, honest view of what we are to celebrate. The notion that many of us know that we were politically and economically more autonomous, not long ago than we are now, perhaps. That we traded not only with the New England coast, but we also traded with the Nordic countries. That there are our own people who have resettled. We know about, within the U.S. and different states. We know even in the UK and in other parts of Europe, we see the connection in Honduras and the Bay Islands and other parts of the Spanish, Caribbean. But to what extent are we willing to embrace that, to ensure that it is shared with our people and not only highlight certain things or deny certain things? If you don't, as you said, if you don't know, where you come from, how are you going to know where you're going, right? And if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So for some reason, we've allowed so much to be shared in a society without question. You exhibit a sense of national pride. You're called xenophobic. You stand up for your own people and advocate, for their prosperity. You're considered biased. I just said just then earlier that, there are a number of people in our society that we celebrate and showcase, many of whom sitting and former politicians would come to me and complain about. And I say, but you're the elected person. If you want help in dealing with them, I'm happy to, but I don't have that authority. If a person is a mutt and you can't make them a little better, then you deal with them. But
that's that is one thing I would wish I could just argue against all the time. And when we think about politicians, how they put things in place for these different nationalities to come here and more or less defeat us from who we are or what we know. I remember one time, and that is something that I wish I could just go out there and have a public meeting regarding things like that. I remember one time when I was in Miami going through immigration, and immigration in Miami is not people that you're supposed to even smile at, put it that way. And one guy looked at me, he said, are you from Jamaica? And I said, excuse me? And he said, are you from Jamaica? I said, no, I'm from the Cayman Islands. And he said, where is that? And I tried to explain to him. He said, oh, you mean Dominican Republic? I said, no, that's a big difference. I said, you talking about 500-700 miles away? I said, no, you far from where I'm talking about. I said, I'm talking about the Cayman Islands, which lies south of Cuba. I said, you are from Havana. You should know where part of Cuba is. And you should know where south of Cuba is. And me and him down one argument. Finally, I said to him, I got to the point, I said, you know what? My father said, mustn't argue with fools. So I quit arguing with him. And I stopped, and finally he came, and he must have pulled something up on the computer. He said, oh, okay, I see where you from. Okay, my friend. Thank you for your time. And he boom, stopped me. And he said, I hope I see you again. And I said to myself, I hope I don't see you. Because, I mean, this man was ready to tell me that I'm from a different country from where I was. And me and him almost end up in an argument. He's a government official. I'm a tourist coming in.
Yeah.
But you see, if you are not a person that will stand and argue for who you are, you will fall for anything. That is the example I'm trying to lay across.
Yeah, man. It's a lot to do with, holding your space and accepting responsibility, but it's also about pride. Many would listen and say, well, boy, you shouldn't argue. Now, perhaps as I heard what you shared, this wasn't a contentious, animosity, malicious, disrespectful argument. You were basically holding yourself, listen, no, this is where I'm at, get him to appreciate. Yeah. But that's very much similar to me when someone, and mostly people for whom their name isn't as easy for us who may speak English from the perspective that we do. So they may have a name and they'll anglicize their name so it'll be easier for us to say. I wonder sometimes by them doing that if they are doing themselves a great disservice, because are they unconsciously, some consciously perhaps, devaluing who they are. If your parents gave you this name and you don't like it, well, maybe there's a way to legally change it. But if it's the name and it's the way it's said, your name may be George and you say George, but you want to spell it with a J. Well, is it Jorge or is it George? You decide what it is and you make sure people say it as you want it, right? My friend, we got the news. I was trying to take an extra minute to distract Miss Susan, but we're good or you want to chat some more? You can call back if you wish, right?
Yeah, because I didn't get my topic in, so I'll call back.
Yeah, man. All right, thank you, man. Thank you. A good conversationalist is inspiring to listen. Let's pause and take the news and get informed by our wonderful team. When we come back, let's get into it.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Monday, January 23rd was the 20th National Heroes Day in Cayman Islands history. This year's theme, Volunteerism and Charitable Services, honored over 200 volunteers, 10 charitable organizations, and 1 philanthropist. Among these persons were 70 early pioneers categorized as any individual, alive or deceased, who founded or made an exceptional contribution to the development of voluntary service in the Cayman Islands prior to 1980. There were also 124 pioneers honored for making exceptional contribution for over 20 years to voluntary services within the Cayman Islands. In international news, the U.S. state of California is reeling from its third mass shooting in 8 days after a man shot dead 7 former co-workers south of San Francisco. The victims were all Chinese-American farm workers. The suspect was arrested after driving to a police station. It comes as the state mourns the death of 11 at Monterey Park during Lunar New Year celebrations. A week ago, 6 people, including a teenage mother and baby, were killed at a property in Central California. Several senior Ukrainian officials have resigned as President Volodymyr Zelensky begins a shake-up of personnel across his government. A top advisor, 4 deputy ministers, and 5 regional governors left their posts on Tuesday. Their departures come as Ukraine launches a broad anti-corruption drive. Recently, authorities have seen bribery claims, reports of officials buying food at inflated prices, and one figure accused of living a lavish lifestyle. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Born in Watering Place, Cayman Brac, on the 8th day of July 1936, Captain Fred Elman Scott was the 5th child born to Nalio and Vera Scott. Captain Scott was a quiet-natured child who liked going on the bluff with his grandfather Oscar Brown, swimming every Saturday evening and playing cricket down where Miss Alame's house sits now. He was very studious at Creek Elementary School and did very well under the tutelage of his favorite teacher, Miss Isley Connolly in BE. Following the tragic death of his father at sea, at age 14 he left school to work with Arnold Foster to support his family. In 1953, he joined his first ship, the Beretta, a local cargo vessel, signing on as deck boy, working his way up to bosun. From 1953 until 2006, some 52 years, Captain Scott made his living working off the seas.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your Sister Islands.
Discover all that our Sister Islands have to offer.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon, welcome Mike, and thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-TALK, 1-800-534-8255. You can WhatsApp 925-3261 and share your thoughts with us. Hey, we want to hear from you. We want to make sure that you are part of our discussion. And to, the gentleman who not only shares from his intellect, but his intellect and his enthusiasm, but his courage to not just represent, but to, respectfully share of our history and our heritage. We have, as many know, the CYSA show coming up on Friday. Again, if you were not able to hear my, heartfelt apology for having to have it rescheduled from last Friday. I got caught up in something that took me away for a little bit longer than expected. That just gives us more time to do more work, because when you look at our history, it's challenging. We want to make sure that we present it in a way that is memorable, but we want to do it justice. We want to be respectful. We want to make sure that it's accurate. And a lot of our stuff is spread, over a lot of places. The fact that there is a resource, or there are resources elsewhere, may be unknown to many of us. There are a lot of things that we've uncovered, and we wonder to what extent this is being shared. Is it being taken up? Is it being, as Mr. Loxley often shares, collated in such a way that we have it for posterity, but we also are able to now and then, present it publicly, but in our schools very positively. For some, they're surprised that, wow, you have a trade in history with the Nordic countries. There are, connections. Well, just look around our communities and ask yourselves. I wonder, though, if it's, as some of you have said, either a deliberate, concerted effort to displace, or is it that there is, as some would say, cultural re-engineering taking place? Is it that we're so complacent that we no longer appreciate the significance of valuing who we are, respecting it, recognize it, and showcasing it as we share it with others, so that they too can be equally proud? I'm truly honored to live in this country, not just to be of the ancestral connection, but to live here. I get to meet, interact, and learn from so many people from almost every walk of life. For some of us, it's been a long, long, long time. In excess of 3, 5, sometimes it may even be a decade plus since we've traveled consciously, deliberately. There are some seafarers, if you talk to them, they say they've seen the world over many times, and they have no more desire to leave their shores. They're glad to be home. Some would tell you that their last experience or two, they wondered if they would make it home. So now that they're back on solid ground and the rock where their heart and navel string is, well, they want to stay. But by being here, we can interact with so many people that is almost as if you're taking a vacation every day as you sit and meet. I'm grateful for that opportunity sometimes to just chat with people, and they tell me about their upbringing in the country, and it's better than a documentary. It's better than a history book. It's better than your classroom. You live in it. You're immersed in it then and there. All right, it's open line. We go to our phones. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hello. Good afternoon, Sterling. How you doing?
Hey, my good friend. How are you today, man?
I'm pretty good, giving thanks.
I always know you to be grateful, man. So I know you're giving thanks, man. So instead of being pretty good, I'm looking for you to be even better.
All right. I pray every day that
Amen, brother.
I can wake up in the morning so I can be able to give thanks.
Amen, brother. Amen.
I was just listening in for a short period, but because I was doing some stuff, but I just wanted to call in to kind of bring something to the forefront, only because I think that it's just been kicked around for so long, and nobody has really ever. And I'm not sure which ministry it fall under. I haven't looked into that, but I just think that no one has really prioritized fixing the situation. And I only say this because over the last couple of weeks, right? And again, like I said, I don't call names on anyone, but I mean, especially people that you help and you try to keep that confidential, right? But there's this lady over the last couple of weeks that I've been helping out, and this lady been sleeping on the beach with her 4 children, right? And I've helped her with hotel rooms. I've given her money to buy food. I've done all of those things. And I'm not saying that because I look in somebody tap me on the shoulder. I'm just saying that
you recognize the need.
I bring it to the attention only because she was telling me that she has NAU assistance, $1,200 a month, but she can't find nobody who will accept NAU assistance. And the primary reason for it is from what I've come to understand is that NAU takes a long time before they pay anybody who's renting to NAU assisted people. Now, for the life of me, I want to know, how is it that you can go through a process at the needs assessment unit and become eligible for their assistance, but yet they're not paying the people who are renting to the individuals who need the help on time, and so that these people can have a place to stay. The reason why this woman was staying on the beach, Sterling, is because she couldn't find any way that would accept NAU assistance.
So there is, I know that, and I'm not saying this to defend.
Not to cut you, my friend. Not to cut you.
Go ahead.
But we need to stop. We need to really and truly stop having all of these conferences and seminars and celebrations until we fix something as simple as making sure that the funds at NAU is being allocated every year is efficiently and effectively being distributed to the people who need the help. We gotta stop this.
I want you to guide me, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I think anyone who's listening would recognize that you're not, as you said, this isn't for me to say I do this. This is for you to identify that this is a growing need. Like you, I got a couple of individuals who say, listen, you got a few minutes, let's take a drive. Pick the day, pick the hour of the day. And we're increasingly seeing behavior that we are accustomed to perhaps maybe experiencing in another jurisdiction. So what looks like in another jurisdiction, a person pushing a shopping cart with belongings, or a person congregating somewhere on the beach or in a space, and for whatever reason, it seems with increased frequency, people are now living like that, living in places, right? And as you shared, there are probably even some who are living in an accommodation, but without electricity, without running water, without sufficient funds to make ends meet, but they're going to work. So I want you to help me so that I, don't disrespect anyone just yet, B, don't seem to be defending anyone unnecessarily, but like you said, ask the questions so that we can at least start to address it. So for instance, if the NAU staff say, listen, we're trying, but here's a challenge that we're having.
I don't believe it's the staff or anything in what. The problem is, the problem is this, is that who's ever in charge of that portfolio, whichever minister's sitting flat on their hands and not sorting it out, is the person that is responsible for NAU picking up this bad name. Because if there is someone who is failing at their job in that institution, it is the ministry and it is the minister and the people who are pulling the levers responsible for making sure that those things are carried out properly. I'm sick of hearing it. We've been hearing this now for years and years. It's not the first time I've helped someone who couldn't get NAU assisted rental property. You can even see the ads in the paper, Sterling, that says we don't accept NAU assistance. Yeah,
but the question is, right, if that is a genuine concern that people have. No, we won't get paid for the next year, or if it's a perception. Whether it's true or it's a perception, the fact that if people are acting on that, then the consequence is the same. But what if NAU, again, just as an example, or any other government entity, isn't paying on time because the funds are not available to them to do so? And what if we could move funds from some other expense that we don't need now? If I'm hearing you as I'm listening to other people share, the question is asked, where are our priorities relative to our people's needs?
Well,
how do we, you know?
Well, but then that leaves the question then, Sterling. That means to tell me that we are approving people for NAU assistance knowing that we don't have any money? Is that what we're doing?
Well, that's a fair question.
We cannot be approving people who've applied at NAU saying, okay, you can have NAU assistance, here's the process, here's the form, here's the requirement, and then putting them in the approval bucket, and then now we don't have the money to afford to assist the people that we just approved them to be assisted for? Come on now. I don't think that's a problem. I think the problem is that whatever funds are being allocated, or whoever it is that is approving these things, must be based on the funds available. Can't be just approving people and not got no money. That can never be the issue. I will beg that is not the situation. God knows, because then I know we got Banana Republic running here. Because this lady have 4 children, you know. She had to sleep, and she didn't lie to me, you know. She didn't lie to me, Sterling. The woman slept in the car for nights on end on 7 Mile Beach. And the only how she could communicate with me is to drive to Pizza Hut parking lot where the free Wi-Fi is, and she would message me.
You see, this is something that, and if it's okay, I hope that I can say thanks to you and people like you who see that need, try to help where you can. But I'm wondering if there is a reluctance.
Okay, and I agree. And like I said, I bring that to the forefront this morning because this happened. This is not the only phone call I got make it. I'm going to make a phone call to the representatives because and one of the ladies texted me. She told me she reached out to Wayne Pannon and she reached out to her MP. Nobody answered the phone and nobody helped her.
Yeah.
Right? But I can say this, and I can say this freely. Right? If I am able to help her, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have the government resources.
Right.
So how is it that the regular people in the street can help individuals who are in need, and when they're in a position to help, how is it that we can help them efficiently, but government who have our entire ministry and people working in it can't do this thing efficiently? Because you know why, Sterling? It's because we prioritize everything else other than our people, and that is a fact. That's a fact. So at the end of the day, I only talking about that one thing today because it breaks my heart to know that people got to sleep on the beach with their children, and I don't care what transpired that they ended up in that position.
Right.
They're still human beings, and those children don't deserve to be brought up like that. And especially when our government can parade around here about all of these surpluses and all the things we got and having all these award ceremonies and all these things. Listen, we need to hit the pause button and fix something as simple as that before we have another gala or a ceremony or anything in this country. We got to fix this problem. No woman shouldn't be on no beach with her children. That's unacceptable.
I'm hoping that people will hear your heart and join you in saying let's acknowledge these things, let's address them, because these are people, you know. And as I listen to you, if our children are growing up like that, what happens to their future? What happens when they get and become adults? You know, what is it?
Do you understand the mental? You understand what happened to these children? So they got to see their mother work a part-time job, barely make enough money to feed them, much less put a roof over their head. Get assistance from the so-called government institution that's supposed to be helping, but yet nobody in this island would rent anybody who has any assistance. You're telling me something fundamental and wrong with that?
Well, we got a lot of issues like that, because that is something that now has come to the fore and increasingly so. As I shared earlier, what if there are people for whom they may be struggling to keep up their rent or their mortgage payment with their bank? Well, it's not even a mortgage. As I understand the definition, it's just a demand loan that they have over 15 or 30 years, whatever, right? And that's a fundamental issue that's not been addressed either. But,
exactly.
You know, man, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart.
I would just love to see that our people become priority, and we can prioritize the assistance that we claim we have in place for our people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you right now, it's unbelievable that we got these scenarios happening in our country. And,
I don't want to interrupt your action, right? But the next time we chat, and maybe I just ask a question now, so others might chime in, but acknowledging that that's a challenge that we have and we're not prioritizing, I wonder what are some of the possible solutions. I want to ask you for a response now, because I know you're going to get on, as you said, make some more phone calls to get this thing resolved. But I wonder if people listening would chip in and say, hey, here's something that we need to also address and acknowledge, and let's see how we can address it. But thank you for sharing that, my friend.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too. And to the caller and to those who are listening, it may make some of us embarrassed, and we might say, no, let's not talk about that because we feel bad. Some of us might, and I'm not saying this to offend anybody. If you are offended, it is my apology. You call, tell me, and I'll try to fix it so you feel a little better. But for some of us, we say, oh, that's a need. We'll start another charity. We'll get a project going. That's good. But it's not about us feeling good. It's about, as what the callers say, let's prioritize. Let's ensure that this happens. There, by the grace of God, goes I. Let's ask yourself this question. How many of us, we get up every day and we go to work? And I mean every day. Not just 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, sometimes 2 jobs. And at the end of the month, do we see anything for that work? Not only are we probably unable to save any money, we don't have enough to pay for what? So we delay or short pay, or we say, you know what, let's just go without this in order to get that. Now, if our country is supposed to prosperous, is it? The phone lines are open. Let's take every call that comes in. We got a couple. Let's go to the first. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hey, good afternoon, Sterling.
Wait, welcome back, man. Welcome back.
Yeah. I just want to comment on that gentleman that just called. My goodness, Sterling. If that doesn't wake up and get everybody that in government to call your show regarding that, or even send in an email saying that they're going to do their endeavor best to help that lady with them children. Sterling, if somebody else don't do that today, we are clearly opening our eyes to see what whole set of government officials we have put in that place called LA building. That is a rude awakening for the people that in power of the Cayman Islands. For that gentleman to take that kind of responsibility into his hand, the heart that he has, and knowing that our people, this lady reached out and nobody want to help her, Sterling.
Yeah, but
what in the world have we become?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I mean, one listener calls and says, well, where's the children's father, right? Just a question. But to what you shared, to what the caller just shared, for those of us who are involved in different sort of...
Exactly.
Right, there's a growing concern in this country that many of our families and many of our children are not only raising themselves, but they're growing up in an environment where there isn't that level of work ethic, there isn't that level of responsibility, there isn't that level of comfort, care, concern, there isn't that level of safety. And for whatever the reason is, if we look at a child now and we look at them, depending on the age, we go back to when they were younger, or we watch them now and we see when they're 10 years from now, what are we seeing? And is there a pattern emerging that we have a serious issue that is plaguing our society, and what are we doing about it? So,
but Sterling, I mean, when you stop and think about it, these children, they're not the first one to go through these kind of situations. There have been many more, and they will be the same as time goes on. That's life. But to know that our government, because of the topic I wanted to call you this morning regarding was this foolish rubbish that we going through here on Cayman Brac about these feral cats. Government can spend money on rubbish like that, but they can't help that woman over there in that kind of situation, Sterling.
Yeah.
Let me say something, and I hope the entire 3 Cayman Islands are hearing, and I know a lot of Cayman Brackers are listening, but I hope that the next election time come around, that every one of them that up in power, when they come begging, I hope everybody today that's standing up will stand up and run them as far as the east is from the west, because we cannot allow these kind of politicians to be in government knowing that our people are struggling, starving, and suffering because of the foreign nationalities that come in our country, Sterling. They are the ones that they're paying attention to, and we as the Caymanians are getting absolutely nothing in our own islands. This is getting out of hand, Sterling. And people, we know for certain that one or two of those politicians are listening. Not all of them are listening, and I know one or two are listening. And you got to tell me that they can't do something in order to help this lady? Sterling, we are, I said it before, we are going down a spiral faster than anybody can blink. And if they think it's a joke, tell them to keep looking. Because when recession hit us, for the government wasting money on rubbish, we are going to be left that we can't even eat bottle, much less banana.
Well, we've seen a few things. Yeah, my friend.
Yeah. Anyway, my friend, you take care.
You do the same, man. Keep us posted and keep us informed. Let's take one more. Appreciate it, man. All the best. Let's take one more before we go to the break. Welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon to all our listeners. How are you hearing me?
Mr. Raymond 5x5, man. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, sir. Okay, I would like to publicly give my condolences to the family and friends of Mr. Mark Walton from Spot Bay, Cayman Brac, who died this morning. Another seaman that traveled the oceans all around the world.
Yes, sir, and certainly the respect and love and prayers, for the family, and as you said this morning, so I'm sure they want us to cover them in prayer, but let's be respectful as we share. Huh?
Yes, sir, and I had a maritime tribute using the second biggest tanker in the world, pass by 12 o'clock and give 10 long blasts of the horn honoring Mr. Mark Walton. Miss Lurley Scott, as she was a big contributor involving with the seafaring community, and her husband being a seaman as well from a community family, seafaring family, and also for the late Morrell Scott that was laid to rest on Saturday. So it was three persons that the tribute from the world's second biggest tanker at 1,114 feet long by 196 feet wide, almost 200 feet wide, carrying American crude oil for the Chinese in Ningbo, China, which will give it a 49-day journey to reach China. March the 14th is the ETA for it there.
Wow.
So those great persons from the seafaring community was honored by the Greek captain of the Onassis family tanker Olympic Lion. And the captain passed his deepest sympathy, condolences, and may God bless, he said, the family and friends of all of the deceased. And he said he was working for the company 25 years, and I worked on Olympic Stream, which was one of Onassis tankers that came to Cayman Brac. So we exchanged some information, and he was delighted to hear that. So it was his delight to honor the three great persons from Cayman Brac and the seafaring community that we have lost again.
That reminder, and certainly we're mindful that as we share, that we do so as you have with such respect. Mr. Raymond, thank you. As we go into the break, sir, anything else you want to share?
Yes, just quickly, the
Yes,
last
sir.
tanker that delivered diesel to Grand Cayman, I know a lot of people wants to know where we get it from. It came direct from Houston to Grand Cayman, pumped out what they needed in Grand Cayman, and went on to St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So Grand Cayman was directly en route, as I have said many times. We are in the route of these tankers coming to the Cayman Islands, going other places, from back and forth, from the east and from the west. Yes, that's what I just wanted to give an update on that. Anyway, all the best until next time.
Yes, sir. As I say, when our brothers go fishing, standing by on 1-6. Thanks very much, Mr. Raymond.
Yeah, good afternoon to all and happy time.
That is it, man. We're going to pause. I can see her, and if I listen intently, I know I'll hear her as well. She comes from the HSA, our speech and language pathologist. We need another, no, just kidding, it's not a boxing match, but it feels it's going to be, because we're going to learn as we laugh and feel a little bit of love. So we're going to welcome Miss Faith when we return. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
When you're craving something big, something tasty that gives you that lip-smacking satisfaction, something that hits the spot, there is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
It's pretty tasty.
Filling and full of flavor. Try our new sweet onion steak teriyaki with a twist. Or the classic chicken teriyaki. Top it with green pepper, onions, cheese, and that sweet onion teriyaki sauce. All piled on your favorite artisanal bread. Satisfy that craving with a footlong from Subway.
Fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty.
Let's make it a meal with a drink, chips, and cookies. There is nothing better than a footlong from Subway.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
The MedLab team would like to extend their congratulations to all of the Heroes Day awardees. Thank you for your service.
Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For the record. For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM for Cayman's Straight Talk Morning Show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record.
Brought to you by Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
The application deadline for Education Council Overseas Scholarships for the 2023-2024 academic year is Tuesday, 31st of January 2023. To apply for an Education Council Overseas Scholarship or learn more about the various scholarship programs before the deadline, please visit the Ministry of Education's scholarship application portal at www.moescholarships.gov.ky or email the Scholarship Secretariat Unit at scholarships@gov.ky. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Education.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thanks very much for joining us. And I'm honored always to be able to have this partnership with the Health Services Authority and opportunity to speak about into education or healthcare. And I want to pay attention because I not only learn, but be reminded of how important it is. And to have the speech and language pathologist, Ms. Faith from the HSA. Thanks very much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me as usual. You know, I always enjoy coming and chatting with you.
You know, it's interesting because I think increasingly we're starting to appreciate the importance of not just language. And some of us would even ask the question, well, there's language and then there's dialect. There's even diction.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us, in their attempt to, some student said to me, he uses big words because he wants to sound more photosynthesis. That would be a joke, right? And it took me a while to get that out of something that they say, however long it was they said it. But why I share that is that we don't always appreciate how important it is to communicate. And the business of getting information from point A to point B sometimes is lost even in a communication organization.
Mm-hmm.
But to chat amongst ourselves and to value who we are and to appreciate our children learn so much that we don't even realize we teach them. So as we welcome you and get you to share with us, one of the things I want to understand is that we talk about speech and language pathology and speech and language therapy, and is there a difference? Is it just semantics? What is it? Inquiring minds want to know, and Susan's making notes.
No problem. Well, as we came on and say, same dog puppy.
Same dog puppy.
Speech and language therapy and speech language pathology. It really is just depending on the jurisdiction that you're coming from.
Okay.
U.S., Canada, Australia tends to use the word pathology because they feel like it better reflects the breadth and depth of all that we do in our field. But in UK and the Caribbean, Caribbean is starting to shift towards pathology as well. But in the UK and South Africa, they still utilize the phrase speech and language therapy. Yeah. So obviously we are a British territory, so by default we tend to utilize the speech and language therapy more than the pathology, but there are individuals like myself who are trained in the US, so obviously my certifications, everything are in pathology because of the jurisdiction I was trained in.
Okay.
So, but same dog puppy, both is correct.
Okay. And thanks for sharing that, because I think sometimes too, it's not just how a word is spelled or how it's even pronounced, but sometimes we may substitute, not so much for semantics, but we substitute and we think they're interchangeable. They may or may not be. And I wonder if we get so caught up in the word that we lose its import. So helping us to appreciate that. I know there are those of us, we just love a label, boy.
Yes.
I'm the chief cook and bottle washer. What do you say, do?
Yes, exactly.
You go for, okay.
Exactly. And, the speech refers to our articulation, how we pronounce our words, and any issues relating to that. So whether it's issues with our voice, issues with our articulation in terms of how we're pronouncing our sounds, issues with stuttering or the fluency of our speech, all of that falls under the quote-unquote speech umbrella. Whereas with language, that refers to how we understand the content of the information we're receiving and how do we express that information, whether that is spoken through any other form of communication, such as sign language, augmentative alternative communication, reading, writing, all of those fall under the language umbrella.
And there's something that I would ask of you, maybe for future discussions with a panel of others, that, accentism as well, right? But I wonder, in saying that looking at our formative and perhaps even our very early days of whether at home and in school, if that sort of developmental stages of our language, whether it's how important it is to learn the elocution, learn the diction, learn how we express and the like, as you shared. But is it possible to get all of that so that we're speaking properly, as our parents would want us to do, but we also are mindful of, our dialect, of who we are? Now, I didn't realize this until just a few years ago, honestly, that I was doing myself a disservice. I will do my deliberate endeavor to write as properly as I can. But I was very indignant, perhaps some would say stubborn, that when I spoke, there's no question. Now, conscious of my clients back in my former life, on the phone, there's no email, you're speaking to them, they need to understand what it is that you're ordering, what instructions you're providing, because they get it wrong, it's costly. But I could speak. Telephone is an impediment. It was very clear. But for some reason, some people, especially on the microphone, it can be gargled, it can muddle, it can whichever. But for many of us, we think having an accent, saying, as my friend say, in his American best twang, well, I is one of these. Now it sounds
so an accent is actually the influence of one language on another. So I may speak Spanish with an English accent or a Cayman accent because the influence of my natural language is impacting how I am speaking in another language. But if me and you are outside of here and we're chatting, I'm speaking in my Cayman dialect, which is a variation of a language. And I think one of the things that is important for the listeners to understand is that there is nothing wrong with a dialect. A dialect actually, by ethical standards, should not even be addressed therapeutically. It is an accepted variation of a language. And I think what we're seeing worldwide is, especially in the Caribbean, we're seeing that kind of just open embrace of your dialect and all that it brings with it and all that it carries with it, the cultural influences, the historical influences, you know, and obviously dialects change over time. I would anticipate the Caymayan dialect is going to sound very different because of immigration and influences. You know, like a lot of our children are watching U.S. television, so a lot of our Caymayan children are sounding more like American now, you know. And so, you know, and then we have so much more of an immigration influence. So I think dialects do change over time, you know, and I think back to when my grandfather used to talk to me how each district, and you hear each district
very distinct,
were very distinct, and even within every district there were sub dialects within the district. And so, you know, I think, you know, obviously over time things shift and change, but there actually is nothing wrong with your dialect. And so, you know, love who you are.
Love who you are.
And you know, if you're from Bordentown, talk like you from Bordentown. If you're from West Bay, talk like you from West Bay. And you don't need to see a speech therapist for that.
No, man.
Now, if you're having difficulties with word finding the word to say, if you're having difficulty understanding what people are saying, if you're having difficulties where your voice is shutting off, or maybe you've had a stroke, or maybe you have a young child or grandchild, you're noticing that they're not talking at all, that is where I would come in, or someone from my team would come in.
Yeah. It's interesting you reference about like within the Caribbean. So as I have done in the past, and promise this may only be the second time this year, this calendar year I've done it, in preparation for a discussion, I reached out to a couple of people, some of whom I know, some of whom were giving me the contacts. And I said, listen, having this discussion, I want to understand something. And it was driven primarily from comments people have made. So just in the Caribbean, right? Whether you were originally from the Caribbean, but if you were raised up in the Caribbean, what was the expectation in your household? Every single one. And I started counting at 18 because time was down now. So I made 18 phone calls, and all Caribbean nationals. The only thing, and I'll say that in a second, that I could see as a connector was that in all of their households, their parents insisted that they spoke a certain way because that was proper English. So much so now that in these individuals who are north of 40, put it that way, they almost feel as if they no longer speak with the same sort of way that their parents spoke. And it was because their parents thought that if you want to be intelligent and sound intelligent, you had to speak a certain way. The enunciation, the elocution, the grammatically correct. And whenever they spoke in their dialect or their little nuances, they were looked at and frowned upon. And I thought, wow. And that's been across all of the Caribbean.
Yes.
It was an expectation, but I was amazed that was the conclusion. Does it shock you?
No.
See, because you're professional, you know this.
No. But I think that is more like a social linguistic thing, which I think we should table for another day.
Okay. Maybe a good pause. Let's take a break.
Yes.
When we come back, we want to ask a couple of questions. We want to know, you know, what's the speech and language sort of pathologist or technician or therapist, you know, you referenced it, well, you know, what they do as well. Tell us more about it, and maybe how we'll go about it, and who should. Is it too late? You know, 70 years old. Is it okay, or should you be 7 and 17? We can talk about those things.
Sure.
All right, Miss Faith is, you know, the consummate professional. Well, we're going to pause and we're going to learn more from her. So join us after.
Savannah Pharmacy, proud sponsor of Talk Today, Cayman's #1 call-in talk program. A new year upon us. Upgraded resolutions. Some things change. Some things linger. When it comes to who you trust, your friendly neighborhood pharmacy, Savannah Pharmacy, is here, where everybody knows your name. Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we are introducing the new boneless hot sub.
Say what?
The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
The MedLab team would like to extend their congratulations to all of the Heroes Day awardees.
Increase your chances
Thank
to
you
win
for your
during the
service.
Rubis Pure Joy promotion.
Don't miss Double Stamp Tuesdays and Thursdays at Jose's Rubis. Reflections offers you gas for less, and each time you fuel up at Jose's Rubis, you can enter to win weekly prize giveaways, plus the grand prize of a beautiful piece of land in Grand Cayman.
I'm sorry, what?
What did you say?
Yes, Double Stamp Tuesdays and Thursdays are back at Jose's. Lower priced fuel, awesome prizes, and your chance to win a $150,000 piece of land. Don't forget, on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Jose's Rubis, you not only get gas for less, you get double stamps to enter to win a $150,000 piece of land in the Rubis Pure Joy promotion. Be entered to win in the Rubis Pure Joy promotion by January 27th.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us, and thanks too to Miss Faith for being a part of us as we talk about speech and language therapy. And we're sort of asking, what is it? What are they? What do they do? And you alluded to it, but like everything, anything good worth repeating.
No problem.
And boy, I mean that.
So speech and language therapy refers to the assessment and the treatment of speech, language, and swallowing disorders. That is the official description terminology for it. Under that speech and language umbrella, we have multiple kind of subgroups. So we have articulation, which is how we pronounce words. We have voice and resonance disorders. So maybe you have a vocal cord paralysis or some weakness in your soft palate that is affecting how your voice sounds or how your resonance sounds. That is something a speech and language therapist can assist with. We also work on fluency of speech, which relates to stuttering. We work on cognition. We work on language. We also work on augmentative alternative communication. So those are alternative methods of expressing ourselves. For whatever reason, the speech is not forthcoming. It's difficult for that person to coordinate the motor planning related to speech. Maybe they've had cancer, maybe it's autism. It could be a wide variety of things from young children up to adults. We could support you with securing a device and utilizing that device or utilizing an alternative method of communication, whether it's a picture board, communication book, apps nowadays. You can get an app on your phone, app on your iPad. We also work on social aspects, so that pragmatic language, understanding that social use of language. We also work on swallowing and feeding disorders. I think that is everything. We work on a lot of things.
And I mean, we probably take for granted the extent to which we communicate and how important it is. And I was thinking of this as we were considering this discussion. I say this often, you take the game of football.
Mm-hmm.
On the pitch, two teams, more than likely it's a club team in, say, the European League, multiple languages being spoken by the players. The referees are probably a different language. But through the game of football, they understand what to do and through practice. And I wonder to what extent if we employ that into our own lives with practice through communication, through language, how we can convey the message. You point, you click a button, you do these things. But if you don't practice and you don't train, let's say the football team, then your ability to communicate is sometimes maybe compromised or lessened and the like.
Yes, and we honor all forms of communication. So we're not married to communication only looks like talking and listening. Communication comes in many forms. I mean, if we just think, if you have an older person in your family, they push their mouth out over there and lift up their eye, you know exactly what they're saying, and so we honor all forms of communication and facilitate all forms of communication, because the right to communicate it's an intrinsic right that we all have, and it drastically impacts the quality of life of that person and the people around them.
Okay. And I think that's sometimes we don't realize how consciously we are denied a voice. We don't have a voice in some instances. We're silenced because of some ailment or other. But then there are times when you don't, because you're precluded from taking a seat at the table. But then to that, well, I think the Cayman context, and it's probably not unlike other jurisdictions, but that raised their brow, that side eye as they look at, or they put them out of the. It's more than body language.
Kiss teeth, you know what that means, right? So yeah.
But yet, how is that in the Cayman context? How do we embrace that? How do we ensure that level of communication? You ask your grandmother something and you don't need to hear her. You just look and the response.
And a lot of that is social communication.
Okay.
Right? And understanding body language and facial expressions and what they mean and how that can have meaning. Understanding how to read a room, how to read somebody's facial expression, body language, because some people have difficulties with that, right? And so this is where, the speech and language therapist would support that, work on those skills, and then encourage that individual to then go back out into naturalistic social environments, right? Because we don't socialize in a clinic room, we socialize with the world around us. And so we very much are a fan of getting you in and getting you back out into your natural environment.
And I wonder to what extent some of us, like you feel that rumbling and thing, right? I feel that intensely. And that sort of helps me make my point. Some of us are, I call it more receptive, perceptive, sensitive to that external stimuli. What is and why is that? And to what extent that informs our communication and the like. Because to me, that what you just felt is you taking me and shaking me. I can feel that intensely. For other people, like, no, I didn't feel anything. And there's a joke that I would make about that, but I'm not going to do that now because we're on the radio.
Well, I think for that, it's just a combination of things, right? To get into the neuroscience of it. And in terms of, our sensory system, are we high sensory or low sensory? Are we, overstimulated or understimulated? Are we, some people are more auditory, some people are more visual, some people are more tactile. And so it's just, there's just a lot that kind of goes into it. There's no one specific diagnosis for that, but we do often see it in social communication disorders like autism, or just a lot of people who are neurodivergent, which is kind of where we're going.
Neurodivergent.
Yes, with the I guess if we want to call it labels, that's kind of where we're going with it. But it's just sort of more looking at it as it's somebody whose brain just operates differently. And so a lot of individuals who are neurodivergent, that would include people with anxiety, people with OCD, with sensory disorders, with autism, with ADHD, a wide range of things. We know that different parts of their brain develops at different levels, that certain parts of their brain are hyperactivated, some are underactivated or hypoactivated. And so a lot of persons who are neurodivergent, a lot of times they're so busy trying to orient themselves to their setting that they are not necessarily that clued into people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they don't have the desire to, it's just that their brain just isn't hardwired that way by default.
So much is happening, a lot of stimuli that they may seem distracted. But
Right.
that goes into the reading the room.
Right.
Right? And not to pick on our grandmothers and stuff, but sometimes they know what's going on way in the back of their head,
Yes.
even though they're talking to you.
Yeah.
They got to read quickly.
Yeah.
Is it, well, to me, it's mostly the women in our lives who are more cognizant of that than the rest of us.
Well, I'm not going to go into anecdotal stuff.
Oh, I'm trying to lead her there. She's not biting.
I am not biting.
Oh, man.
I know, because some of that too is just like cultural, and so I think I'm just gonna stick to the broader topics today.
But see, this is what I admire with you, because the intellect is there. Obvious passion and interest in the language and how we express ourselves, and I'm hoping that more of us, especially those of us who interact with either our children through a school setting or elderly, to appreciate that language is constantly evolving. In a sense, communication is important.
And one of the things that I think is beautiful about HSA is our commitment to cultural linguistic diversity and ensuring that we're providing culturally competent care and culturally responsive care to our community. And so out of our team of 3 speech and language therapists, 2 of us are Caymanian. One is not. She is lovely. And has committed herself. No, because it's like, people will be like, oh, I won't go with who I know, right? So they'll be like, oh, I know this is so-and-so's. I mean, literally, I have like an elderly patient who literally will run anybody who's not Caymanian from her yard, right? So then you have to like explain to her, no. Like, this is so-and-so, and they're nice, and listen, they'll talk to you, and they want to learn about the stuff, and and what I love is that the people on our team are so open, those who are not from Cayman are so open to learning about Cayman, learning about our culture, listening to say, hey, how do you say this word? Because when my patient says it, I want to know, is that their dialect or is that really a disorder? And I think that says a lot about ensuring that we're not over-diagnosing individuals, or that we're not providing them care that is meeting them where they're at and meeting them where their quality of life is impacted, right? Because we don't want to get into this whole, like, I'm the professional, I'm going to tell you what to do. Like, no, we are a team. We want to make sure that the care that we're providing for you, whether you're an adult or a child, it's meeting what is important to you, not what I think should be important to you, and mentorship is something that we built into our team. So we have a number of young Caymanians that we've been mentoring to, are back on island and are working privately. So we're like just happy that we were able to support those young ladies in their field of speech, and that they're like in the community making an impact. And we have several that are in university right now that we support, we mentor, we help them with their papers. If they need an extra eye, have you thought about this? They're in their practicums, So it's just nice that we have that mentorship for like future generations. So it's not something that, I'm getting older now. So it's not one of those things that, that I can't retire because there's nobody else to take the reins,
So when we come back from our news break, could we ask of you services for adults, services for children?
Absolutely.
All right. Miss Faith, HSA, Speech and Language Therapy. Hey, we're going to get into it. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins. In tonight's forecast, partly cloudy skies with a 20% chance of showers. Temperatures will fall to the mid-70s Fahrenheit. Winds will be east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. In international news, North Korean authorities have warned of extreme weather conditions in the country as a cold wave sweeps the Korean peninsula. Temperatures are likely to dip below minus 30 Celsius degrees in the northern regions, which are also the poorest part of the country. Coastal areas are also expected to see high winds. South Korea, too, has issued a cold wave warning, and northern China has been experiencing record low temperatures. Temperatures are also expected to drop to their lowest in a decade in Japan this week. Brendan Fraser has been nominated for an Oscar for his first lead role in a major film for 12 years in The Whale. Tuesday's Best Actor nomination caps a comeback for one of Hollywood's former leading men who has admitted he was left in the wilderness for a decade. The Whale has now led film studios and fans to re-evaluate The Mummy and George of the Jungle's stars' talents. Fraser plays a reclusive and morbidly obese English professor who wants to reconnect with his estranged daughter. The returning U.S.-Canadian actor told BBC News he hopes the feature will help to end the bias against those who live with obesity. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. And as we speak to Miss Faith, we're talking about, if you're speaking Spanish in a particular dialect, well, maybe. ¿Tú hablas español, sí?
Un poquito.
Un poquito. Buenas tardes, señora. No.
I told my husband, I said, especially now with the new last name, I'm like, people gonna really think I'm Spanish now.
And I'll be mindful not to say, because I don't want certain people listening to create problems for myself, right? But it's interesting to hear a native speaker speaking the language, and then you hear someone else for whom, let's say English is their first language, but they have a strong accent or dialect, and then they learn Spanish. And there are one or two of my friends who, when I hear them speaking Spanish with their, accent, I guess,
it sounds completely different.
Yeah, it's just beautiful, put it that way.
Yeah.
Because you're expecting this sing-song, but then you know that the words that are coming out, for those who are a little bit, versed in it, can pick up on it. But I still have to share that in the Cayman context, as I was looking forward to our discussion, we don't need to leave our shores to be introduced and exposed and become enamored almost by so much that's around us, right?
No.
But is it then, in asking the services available for adults and children, are they different? And is it that for us, we have this stigma within us that, oh no, I don't need to go there because I'm okay, or that going to you guys for help is a weakness? Now, I've said to you before, teach me so I can learn. I want to be better.
I think we're definitely seeing a shift. I think, therapy services in general, I think for speech primarily has always been pediatric driven on island. But I definitely see a shift in more persons seeking support for adults, which is great. And so that has been steadily growing, and we hope it continues to grow, And so, so we offer speech and language therapy from birth through end of life. So we do the full range. So when people say birth, it's like, sometimes little babies are in the NICU and they have trouble feeding, or your baby is struggling with feeding, putting on weight. Our team are trained in how to support that, how to support mom and baby, or parent and baby, I should say, because dads are also an important part of feeding and making sure the baby is nourished and making sure everybody's doing well. So we do our best in terms of supporting, in terms of positioning, working with the doctor, trying to problem solve, see what needs to be done. So it is literally from birth through, we're not trying to teach your newborn how to talk, but, feeding is a big part of that. And so we do support with problem solving for that. From the from the adult side, well, I guess I should start with pediatrics and then go up the age range, I think. So for pediatrics, obviously we do articulation. So these are the children that, K-Maya often refer to them as lisp tongue. So, but not every child has a lisp. But, I think K-Mayas typically refer to any articulation issue as a lisp tongue. And so we work with articulation. So some children may just have articulation delays, are struggling with how to produce certain sounds. Some may have phonological processing disorder, which is a little bit more systematic. So maybe I'm replacing all of my K's with T. Maybe I'm replacing all of my G's with D. That's a very systematic substitution, and that follows a pattern where you're producing all of your back sounds with forward sounds, and so then we call that fronting, and we would be working specifically on that pattern.
So the back sounds with forward sounds,
right?
Fronting.
There's like a whole list.
Yeah.
So I won't go into the whole
Fair
list. But but those kids, we would refer to that as having a phonological processing disorder, where it's a systematic replacement of one set of sounds for another set of sounds versus just I have a lisp and I'm producing the S distorted. Okay. Right?
And I wonder if I may then in our education system in those early days of school, the phonics, to what extent some of us were exposed to it, and if so, how did we take it on board? And I look at, again, in today's discussion, I look at some of us who went to certain schools and how we were instructed. And then I look at our children and perhaps even our grandchildren to see that friends share that was only after, a certain offspring came to a certain age, so they realized, whoa, I didn't get that in school. Phonics, how do you look at a word, break it down, and how do you pronounce it?
Right.
Because it may have been absent that day that I was taught.
Maybe. Usually it's not just in one day, though.
I'm just kidding.
So, additionally to that, we have, there may be some children who struggle with oral motor issues. Maybe they had a tongue tie. Maybe they have a tongue thrust, or some other type of disorder of their oral motor movement. So their tongue isn't moving the way it should, or their tongue is more forward, or their jaw is not where it needs to be. So we do have a member on our team, Miss Emily Renault, who we stole from Lurie Children's Hospital, which is a well-known hospital in Chicago, and she is oral myofunctional certified, which is a specialty certification in working with these more severe oral motor issues, and it's very helpful with children who have tongue thrusts, tongue tie, lip ties, that sort of thing, which is a lot more common than we realize. And she also has experience working on the cleft lip and palate team, and we occasionally see a child with cleft lip and palate, and also she has experience with other craniofacial disorders, and that's not something we experience a lot on island, but sometimes when we do kind of have that child on island who has that, it's nice to know that we have a solid team that can support those specific needs.
To that disorder with the cranial, I mean, I'm trying to look at my biology textbook and then the picture of the skeleton and the head and how it's shaped.
So craniofacial is like your skull or face.
So would that be position of maybe the jaw line? Would that be?
It could be any number of things. A lot of times they're syndrome related. And so they may have, those persons with that disorder may have differences in their jaw or their bite, what we refer to as their bite, so how their teeth come together.
Overbite, underbite sort of thing, okay.
They may have macroglossia, so the tongue is big. They may have microglossia, the tongue is small. Macrognathia or micrognathia, the jaw is too big or too small.
Anything.
Anything. It could be any number of things.
Yeah. And I keep telling people little learning is a dangerous thing, right? And the more you read, the more you realize you don't know. So as people listening, this shows us the resources that are available. Come and speak to you guys. We tell them how to do that.
Yeah.
But in that instance, again, just thinking back to my biology classes and looking at it and we're seeing these things, we know surgeries are part of things that help to correct things. Reset a broken bone, whichever. In this instance, what would work?
It depends, because there's a wide range, and I always tell my patients, Google is not your friend.
No.
So I know it's like easy to go down that rabbit hole, and you find that like random parent YouTube blogger who has a child that sounds like yours, and it's like, just don't do it to yourself. You know, like, just talk to the professionals working with your child. And so, yeah, but for that, I mean, with cleft lip and palate, typically, yes, that involves a surgical repair. But I mean, it just depends on what kind of syndrome it is, what kind of disorder it is. Is it genetic translocation? Like, what is it? And there's a reason why, you know, our team all have advanced degrees and are, you know, professionals and specialists in those areas.
I do recognize that humility of sort of like, yeah, you know, we're good. But if it's okay with you, I'm not going to exaggerate, and you make sure I don't misrepresent. But I want us listening to appreciate that we have incredible resource within the HSA,
absolutely,
within your speech and language, you know, therapy unit, and so don't dismiss it. Don't think that we need to go elsewhere. We may, but talk to what resource we have here.
Yes,
I'm also glad you say that Google's not your friend. I think there's an unfortunate thing that we believe that Googling and research is synonymous. It isn't. The stupidness that we find on that foolish thing is horrible. Now, I would venture to say that maybe a trusted website from some university would publish peer-reviewed things. If we're able to read it and understand it, that'd be helpful. But even with that, talk to the people who know and ask them and say, hey, you know, I read this thing. This is what I think it means, but what is that?
Absolutely. And I mean, I know I can speak for my team where we are very open to hearing what a family has found, and if we're not aware of it, we'll look into it ourselves and see if we find any additional evidence that supports it. You know, we do believe in providing family-centered, family-focused therapy intervention, right? Because if you don't buy in and you don't believe in what we're doing, then how is your child going to improve?
You need to understand what's happening.
Exactly.
Right?
It's important for you to be a part of the process. So we're not the types of therapists where you can drop and go. It is, no, you're part of the team, and we're in this together, because we are seeing your child for a snapshot of their week, but you are seeing your child every day. And so we need you to be empowered in how to facilitate your child's needs.
But as you shared too, we have the resources and the support for the pediatrics, and there are probably some of us, just generally speaking, that we know we had an issue from child. We're now 40, 50, 60, whichever. We lived it all this time. Yeah, you know what? Didn't kill you. Yeah, we take that approach, but should we still get it checked out? It's never too late, is it?
If it's impacting you and it's impacting your day-to-day life, your quality of life, I mean, we're happy to assess and see, you know, if there's anything we can do to support you. So, yeah. So, keeping going on with the list, because we do a wide range of things for pediatrics, not just articulation, but we also offering swallowing and sensory feeding evaluations and treatment. And this is very common in a lot of children. And we have a lot of children who come to us for swallowing and feeding therapy. So, we have Miss Raven Ramon, who is on our team, who is advanced trained in this.
You've had a pleasure interviewing her.
Yes, and she does a fantastic job with her feeding therapy. I mean, we've had, you know, we have children who are severe, like tube fed, trachs in place, you know, very complex feeding issues, and she does a remarkable job with that. We also offer voice rehabilitation, although voice issues are not common in children, but they can occur. So if you have a little one who's always hoarse, always clearing their throat and just not sounding the way that a child should sound, you know, speak with your ENT, have your child looked at. If they need some voice therapy, we're able to support with that. We work obviously with children with autism spectrum disorder. That is a very common diagnosis on island. And we are also all trained in the natural language acquisition approach, which is also referred to as Gestalt language approach. And what it is just recognizing that children with autism who, what we would refer to as the echolalia, how they're kind of copying everything that they're hearing people say. What we do is we recognize that that is just an alternative method of language acquisition. And so while neurotypical children, and it's not always children on autism spectrum who learn language in that way, but we know that most children might learn from that bottom up. They start saying a few words, and then they start to piece those words together, and then they start to build on that to create sentences. Children who are Gestalt language processors, what they do is they kind of learn language in chunks. So they're learning, like, as in, I want a cookie, or, and so a lot of families will say, well, they can say a sentence when they want, but when you ask them their name, they're not able to respond to that. And so we have gone through special training on how to support children who are Gestalt language processors, helping them to learn to break down those bigger chunks of language into smaller units so that they can start to manipulate those units of language more and create more naturalistic language, like sentences, and build the comprehension up with that at the same time. We also do a lot of parent training and caregiver training. We embed that into everything we do. So there's a lot of working directly with the parents and working in conjunction with other agencies like early intervention. We have a multidisciplinary team in-house, and we also work with other therapists outside of HSA to support the child as a whole unit, because we recognize that it is not, we're not siloed when we're working with children. It has to be a multidisciplinary approach that is family focused, family supported, and family centric in order for it to truly be successful, and it's, it can be very overwhelming for families when they're dealing with a child who is neurodiverse, and a lot of blaming, well, it's on my side or your side or this or that, and we really just try to support families through it. I know you've heard me say this before. I believe in loving families through it, and, but we're not helping you by saying, okay, we'll take them, goodbye. That's not helping you. What we recognize that helping you is empowering you and training you and upskilling you so that you can truly be the expert on your child.
So, Ms. Faith, when we come back, we want to ask, you referenced it earlier, and maybe as parents more than ever, again, probably because we've had other children or friends with children, or we ourselves may remember being a child at once. Or if that child isn't speaking by this age or is only this, if that's an issue. And if it's so, why and how and what. But it's also, as we close out the discussion, to ask, how do we get in to benefit?
Yeah,
that can work.
And we have lots more to review too as well.
And we're taking orders for lunch. What do you want?
Oh, I had my lunch already, but I'll take a Pepsi.
No, I'll get some custard top cornbread. All right, let's pause. When we come back, we'll talk today.
Between the traffic, the meetings, kids' activities, there just isn't enough time. Best Health Pharmacy was a game changer. Not only are they centrally located on Eastern Avenue, but they deliver prescriptions for free anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. I could not believe it. When my prescription ran out, they ran it back to me. Best Health Pharmacy, located at Crown Square Plaza on Eastern Avenue, across from Edie's Decor, offering free prescription delivery anywhere in Georgetown and West Bay. Call 949-1301 or WhatsApp your prescription to 924-5358. Best Health Pharmacy. Your health, your convenience is their priority.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Dwayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drporterkman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Savannah Pharmacy, proud sponsor of Talk Today, Cayman's #1 call-in talk program. A new year upon us, upgraded resolutions. Some things change, some things linger. When it comes to who you trust, your friendly neighborhood pharmacy, Savannah Pharmacy, is here, where everybody knows your name. Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, just around the corner, with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Cayman Arts Festival 2023, from New York to London, landing in Cayman. 8 landmark events, global music on the island's stage. On Thursday, February 2nd, 7 p.m. at the Harkwell Theatre, hailing from the Big Apple, jazz pianists and top jazz and cabaret performer John Weber joins our very own Caymanian Benil Miller. Tickets are available at www.caymanartsfestival.com. For more information, call 922-5550 or email inquiries@caymanartsfestival.com. John Weber and Benil Miller, Thursday, February 2nd, 7 p.m. at the Harkwell Theatre.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Okay, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks very much to not just the entire HSA and the team, but to you, Ms. Faith, and the whole unit over at the speech and language therapy. Thanks for coming on, because as I'm listening and chatting and asking questions and trying to go through, so it's informative, and hopefully it'll cause us as adults, and especially as parents, to realize 2 things. One, I don't think I'm exaggerating, or being overly polite or what have you. We have wonderful resources within the country, but even within the HSA. It's our tax dollars at work. Let's benefit from it. But 2, I wonder if not only do we recognize it, but we do access. Right? So take us through the information, and then let's get things going, man.
Yes,
even West Race can benefit.
Yes. Well, listen, we can't. I'm married to West Bay, So I'm applying for my West Bay PR.
Well, you know what? We might be inclined to
extend it to me.
We might be.
I'll ask you for my letter.
Yeah. It might happen.
So just to continue on some of the other services that we offer, we also do offer AAC support. That is augmentative alternative communication. That was something I had referenced a bit earlier. We also do school-age literacy and language assessment. So we're looking at if you have delayed language, speech and language, we're able to support with that, with children who are late talkers, not talking the way that they need to. But when children are school age, sometimes there's a different element. You may notice maybe the reading comprehension isn't there. Maybe the child has some underlying literacy disorders or specific learning impairments that are impacting their ability to access the school curriculum. So our team is trained in how to do those language and literacy assessment supports to see if that's something that needs therapeutic intervention, or is that something that maybe the child just needs additional tutoring and help, and we are able to help with that differential diagnosis. We also work in conjunction with audiologists to provide oral rehabilitation support. So this is if you or your loved one has hearing aids, your child has hearing aids or cochlear implants, and they need some support learning how to listen. That is something that we can support with. And then we also support adults. And this is a service that I think I have seen the most growth in the past couple of years. And I think, I think it's becoming destigmatized. I think, adults are not as proud now. I don't know if that's the right word, but definitely I think becoming more informed and I think becoming more open to it. And, I have fun. I'm the primary adult therapist on the team right now, and I'm the jack of all trades, so I can do whatever. but I enjoy working with my adults, with my young at heart. I'm referring to our elderly ones. Oh gosh,
yep.
They just are the highlight of my day, and we just have jokes, and we just have lots of fun, and I just enjoy, the time that we spend together. And so for adults, I mean, obviously for most adults, their issues are something that is acquired. Whereas with a lot of children, it's something that's developmental. So it's as they're getting older, we're seeing, this is not coming online at the time frame that we're expecting, or this is a bit delayed. With adults, a lot of times the skills were there, but something has caused it to now be lost, whether it's cancer, whether it's a stroke, whether it's a head injury, a neurological disorder like dementia or Parkinson's. And so that can have a huge blow on, your quality of life, your ability to interact with your family, with your friends, your ability to work. And so for us, we try our best to take what we use in the clinic to build up the skills and then turn that into functional activities that are going to support your goals of getting back to work, or talking to your children, or spending time with your grandchildren, or you were the baker and now you can't read the recipe. What can we do to help get you back to, even if you can't physically make the heavy cake anymore, how can you explain it to your grandchildren how to make the heavy cake, because those are the quality of life measures.
Can you value,
exactly, and so we work with dysphagia, which is a swallowing disorder. So a lot of times after a stroke, cancer, depending on where the cancer is, brain injury, sometimes the ability to swallow has been impaired. And so I am certified in McNeil Dysphagia Therapy Protocol, which is an evidence-based method primarily for post-cancer, but I've used it with post-trach, like patients who've had a tracheostomy, had it taken out. That trach has anchored that system down for a while, so I had a patient just last week. I don't know if she's listening, but 2 weeks ago she was just drinking smoothies, and last week she got to eat oxtail and rice, and she was happy. I mean, I was happy. I was messaging her doctors, look who ate oxtail, so it's something that we enjoy, and we're trained to do. Also trained in vital stem therapy, which is using neuromuscular electrical stimulation. So I know it sounds very fancy, but it's basically...
No, tell us. That's what we learn.
Yeah, but it's basically a TENS unit. I think a lot of people are familiar with TENS.
For physio and stuff, right?
Right, but it's specified to the muscles for swallowing. So we use a special, we can't use a TENS unit, but we use a special unit specifically designed for the muscles of swallowing. I don't recommend you use a TENS unit. You will burn your muscles and hurt your muscles. But I am trained in how to utilize that, which is another great way for patients who've had vocal cord paralysis and that sort of stuff, post-op issues. I found that to be very helpful for those patients as well. I do a wide range of cognitive linguistic disorders, and our team does as well. So, again, cancer, Parkinson's, worked with a number of ALS patients, dementia. I'm a certified dementia practitioner. So there's a wide range of stuff, and a lot of times with dementia, as Caymanians, we need to be aware that there's certain families, if you have certain last names in your family tree, right? I have a family tree that has that same last name, right? And I'm not saying it's only people with that last name, but I do see there's certain families, if you have a family member who has Alzheimer's, who has dementia, and you notice that you've had 2 or more, being mindful of those signs, those soft signs that you just think, they're just getting old, or they're just getting forgetful. No, get them into therapy, because a lot of what we do is preserving cognitive function in the early stages to delay the onset of the moderate stages. So we make it fun. We do, we do fun activities and things that the patient is interested in, so that they can continue to live the type of life that they like to live. You like to play bingo every week with your friends, so we are going to work on making sure you can keep doing that for as long as possible. You like to go grocery shopping. We're going to practice with our money and our counting coins and making sure that we're able to manage that for as long as we can. So we do an analysis on what kind of activities of daily living is important to you, and then what can I do to support that, right? And so don't wait until your loved one is bedridden and no longer talking, because then the only thing I can do is just support in terms of comfort feeds and how do we keep your loved one eating for as long as we can. But in those early stages, there's so much more that we can do to help maintain cognitive function for a longer period of time.
We hear about neuroplasticity, and as you were speaking, I was thinking that many of us, dominoes, chess, checkers, cards, different things, it's not just fun. We did the game of memory with our children.
Yes.
Keep doing the game of memory.
Keep doing it. I mean, you know, it's so funny. Growing up, my grandmother passed away when I was 18. And, you know, she was a teacher, as a lot of people know. And, you know, I keep telling people my grandmother was like a woman, like beyond her time. You know, the stuff she just knew and understood things. And growing up, you know, especially me, my sister, and my other cousin, like, you couldn't touch us on Family Feud, Price is Right, you know, because we sat and we watched these games with her, and she would watch Game Show Network, she would do these things, and at first we'd be like, oh, Grandma, we want to watch cartoons. Then we start to be like, Grandma, come on, Price is Right is on, come out the kitchen, come on, you know.
They understood what they were doing.
And you know, for her, she was, and then in the evening, it was Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, and it's like, now I find myself, as a certified dementia practitioner, as someone who works with cognitive linguistic disorders, telling people, watch Jeopardy, watch Wheel of Fortune, watch Family Feud, like just that rapid fire naming, all of those things they're great for you, but they also help to keep that brain active, especially as we go into retirement where we're not as busy. I think that's part of the reason why my grandfather never really retired. You know. You know, he retired, then he would start his own thing, and then he'd still write letters for people and still do different things and still go to Rotary as long as his physical health allowed. But for him, he couldn't take just being home, not doing anything. And we have to keep our brain stimulated. You know, our brain, just like any other muscle in your body, if you don't use it, you will lose it. And so you have to keep activating those neurons and firing off those neurons, or else they're just gonna not.
I think this is why too. I appreciate you sharing, but I say this, that one of the reasons technology, I publicly admonish it often, because we become dependent on it. Many of us could remember names and numbers and stuff.
Right.
Now it's there.
Yes.
Yeah, but that there isn't accessible because the battery is whatever, right?
Yeah.
So let's not do that, because I don't know if you use public, I should say, we're getting lazy, but that's what we're doing. We're making we're not training the brain, we're not using it.
No.
Like any muscle, right?
Yes.
Use it or you lose it.
Yes.
Right. Now,
So I'll tell you a fun thing I tell my family. So this is just for safety. Most kids will figure out the code to their devices, make the code be your phone number, and then your child will, without a doubt, know your phone number. Yeah. So that's like a parenting hack I share with all my families when they worry about my child, you know, they may not be able to answer questions, or my loved one, you know, older people like tablets too, and they will know, because it becomes automatic. You know, and so it's a great hack to make. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. I don't want to rush any further, but
I know we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
So I'll just touch on the other two things that we work on for adults, which is voice therapy as well as fluency therapy. So if you're having any issues, vocal cord paralysis, vocal nodules, all those things we can support you with, as well as motor speech disorders. So that is the apraxia of speech or dysarthria. So after you've had a stroke, you know, a lot of times people refer to having that slurred speech. That's something that right now I'm working with 12 different people on my caseload, all with dysarthria. So it's something that we have a lot of experience with. So we have, you know, us, you know, it's a small team, but it's grown a lot in the past few years, and it will continue to grow. We hope to have another young Kimayan join our team later this year. And, you know, so we're growing in the right direction. We can be reached at 244-7675 or 244-2733. That's my extension directly. And you can email info@hsa.ky, obviously, and they will forward it on to the right team. Or you can email our registration person, Randy Young, RANDY.YOUNG. He has a very easy name, at hsa.ky. And you can email me, faith.gailey My email is still the same. Faith, Faith, .gealey @hsa.ky. And just let us know if you have any questions. You want just have a question, a query, see if it's worth it. We'd rather see you and tell you don't need it than not see you and you would have needed it. Gosh, I don't know how this time goes by so quickly.
I hope that's because you're having
flies
fun.
when you're having fun.
I hope so.
Yes.
You're always so informative. I really appreciate that. And I'm hoping that people will start to value, respect, but become aware of what's available.
Yeah.
So that we don't, unknowingly.
Yeah. And we have an amazing team. I think HSA has a bad rap, but unnecessarily so. The motto is caring people, quality service, and it really is. We have an amazing, not just speech, but just our whole rehab department is just amazing group of qualified individuals with a wide range of expertise and knowledge. Honestly, it's where I would bring my family for care, and I think that says a lot. If you have coworkers and you have a place that you trust with your own family, then that we'll take care of yours.
If you don't eat from your own restaurant, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Ms. Faith, thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime we can be of value to you and your team or any of your colleagues, please let us know.
We'll be back. There's lots of stuff we have online for later this year, so we will definitely be back.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
And the week shall be a productive, safe one.
Thank you.
All right. So tomorrow, Miss Susan, we have Mr. Art in the morning for the record. And then we got Talk Today after that again. No, we're not going to close up with any karaoke, but boy, I tell you what, we're going to sing as if our hearts are shining. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.